So there's this trend or movement that I was only peripherally aware of that seems to be growing called religious deconstruction. And it's especially happening with people who as kids were raised in more strict or fundamentalist religions. They get to a point where due to the mounting suffering caused by their religious conditioning, they have to start sort of picking apart or deconstructing their belief system, whether that belief system is conscious or unconscious. And so today I want to say two things to the folks who are either considering or in the process of deconstruction, although this is really for anybody that's interested in emotional repression work. One is, don't stop at religion, and two is, you probably will stop at religion if you're not resolving the mechanism of emotional repression. Let me flesh both of those out. The reason I say don't stop deconstructing at religion is because the mind of people in emotional repression abhors and cannot deal with a vacuum. And that's because when human beings have buried and repressed emotions in our bodies, we need to believe something, no matter what the content, so we don't have to know that we have emotional repression, and certainly so we don't have to resolve our emotional repression. Because both are too scary a prospect. I'm not just talking about regular emotions here, like sadness and anger, right? I'm talking about deeply buried unconscious reservoirs of terrifying emotions like rage and grief. Those buried and repressed emotions, which are distinct from regular sort of surface level emotions, are what create the desperate need to believe things in order to assuage our suffering, right? It's the same mechanism that creates the need for a drug in an addict, which is why we always say in KI that beliefs, belief systems, identities, and worldviews are the drugs of the 21st century, because they keep us stoned and away from the root of suffering in the body. And so as you deconstruct, you're coming off of one drug, your first drug, right? But guess what addicts do in recovery when they come off of their one first drug or drug of choice? They addiction hop. Some might get off alcohol and hop to codependency. Some might get off drugs and hop to overeating. It doesn't really matter. There's tons of cases like this, and you can ask any addict, they'll tell you about it. But the point is, just like the addict's system abhors a vacuum when it comes to a drug, the beliefaholic system abhors a vacuum when it comes to belief. And this is the most important part, because of emotional repression in the body. And so if you were raised in religion, even if you don't think it affected you that much, trust me, you are a beliefaholic. Same as if you carry a political identity, same as if you subscribe to a nationalistic worldview. See? Drugs. And if you want concrete evidence of this, just look at what happens when someone who's high on their beliefs, identities, and worldviews has them threatened or challenged. They freak out, much like an addict would if you took away their drug. Because, again, now they come face to face with the actual problem, buried and repressed emotions in the body. And so, if you are deconstructing, which is like being in recovery from your drug, and you're not addressing emotional repression in your process of deconstruction, the reason that I say don't stop at religion is because you are probably going to addiction hop. I cannot tell you how many people I've worked with who come from religion and hop to atheism, who come from atheism and hop to religion, who come from liberalism and hop to conservatism, who come from conservatism and hop to liberalism. The belief system buffet is all you can eat. And I have people say to me all the time, well, people, it's necessary. They have to make that swing from one side to the other. It's really not. Not if you start out challenging any and all beliefs that you hold in order to resolve your emotional repression. Because as you do this, and both your suffering and your need to assuage your suffering goes away, not only do you start to recognize on the level of the body that beliefs and belief systems are unnecessary, but like with drugs, you start to see the damage that people do to themselves and others when they're addicted and believing things. I mean, look at this guy that got murdered yesterday. The gunman, who is high on his beliefs and ideologies in order to avoid his buried and repressed emotions, kills a guy who he feels like is a threat to his drug. And Kirk, who I didn't know much about, but who was very clearly addicted to his beliefs and ideologies in order to avoid his buried emotions, gets assassinated and turned into a martyr. And for what? Political ideology, religious beliefs, nationalistic worldview? Nope, it's all a smokescreen. The reason that guy died is ultimately because people across the aisle don't want to take responsibility for or feel their feelings. It's so unnecessary, and we all know it. And that's the lunacy and the tragedy of the beliefaholic ego. So unless we want more and more of this, which is what naturally happens as consciousness evolves and people with their belief drugs have their backs up against a wall, consider looking at yourself and getting clean and sober, right? Which means, deconstruction or deprogramming or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not even asking that you do this with me or use KI or whatever. All I'm asking is that you consider doing something, right? Consider resolving your own beliefaholism, regardless of what it is you believe, so that we can stop pretending and watching our unresolved collective childhood trauma play out on the world stage. If you would like to work with me, tap the link.